Hello, coders. Hello. God, I got a croaky voice this morning. Hello. I hope everybody's well. Hope everybody's doing well. It's a Tuesday morning. We're going to do some really interesting things today. Really interesting stuff. There's loads. So, RabbitMQ, messages, Symfony, all of those good things, microservices, yum. This is going to be an amazing web development breakfast. Sorry, I'm just adjusting all of my teas and drinks. Good. I hope everybody's well. I hope everybody is doing good this week. So, let's go over to here. RabbitMQ, ladies and gentlemen. RabbitMQ. So we're going to be playing with putting messages on the queue through the Symfony, communicating between the microservices. We'll be doing all of that today, and creating more APIs, running lots of tests, doing various things. Good morning, Trinid. Hope you're well. Hello, Segfault. Good morning, everybody. Or it's good morning for me. I woke up a few hours back, so I don't know what the time zones where everybody else is. Before I get into this, though, I just want to go into this mode. No way! Oh, congratulations, Segfault. Well done. Just got a job offer 5 minutes ago. Woo! No way. They sent you... Well, good luck. And well done. Good. I'm really pleased to hear that. It's such a great news. I want to say that we've had a nice little growth of followers. So before I start, I just want to thank everybody for following. So I'll go down the list. The Noman Ahmed, Mintopia, Imperio Yankov, Jordan Airwave 666, Dank 6, Water Seeker, Elamont, Laurent Phil, Karen Napati, Dev Moat Ma, iFern, Codebase Alpha. Thank you ever so much for following. I do appreciate that. I really do. Thank you ever so much. We're now at 292 followers, which is amazing and a massive, awesome. I'm just making sounds in my mouth now. Yeah, people's usernames, man. They're blah 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 blah. Yakady, schmackady. Yes. Congratulations, Segfault, for landing your job offer. That is wonderful news. That's great news. Congratulations. So, I can't find the button now. Here we go. RabbitMQ. So, I guess before we start, we should really talk about what queuing services are, queuing systems are, just briefly. My microphone's really short. I have to go over it. So we're using microservices for the new How to Cope Well .net, the new site that we're building. And these microservices, so far we have a user service, which I'm renaming to an authentication service. We've got a course service, which I'm renaming to an e-learning service. And we've got a resource service. We've got a blog service. We will have an order service. We will have a subscription service. We will have an email service. The list literally goes on and on and on and on. There's so many moving parts here. Yeah. So with microservices, the idea is that you keep all of the responsibility of the service in that particular isolated container, right? That isolated stack of services. So you'll have the database for the service, you'll have the storage for the service, you'll have the APIs for the service, the middleware for the service, business logic, all on the service in that service collection, okay, of stuff. Which means that the authentication service doesn't have any knowledge of the core service, which doesn't have any knowledge of the email service, and so on and so forth. However, obviously, those things need to talk and communicate with each other. So if you were to think of a user journey, so a user will register on the site, then the user will enroll on a particular course, and then view the course, view all the tutorials in the course. They may download course materials. So with all of those actions, there's an awful lot of processes behind it. Plus, if they were to purchase a course, that's a whole different story, because you're then dealing with orders, you're dealing with payments, you're dealing with billing, you're dealing with invoices, lots of crazy stuff. And then, obviously, on top of that, you've got all the emails. So the welcome emails, the enrollment emails, the email after the user has done the course to attach the certificate, lots and lots of stuff. So the idea with putting messages on a queue is to do it in a manner that doesn't disrupt the communication across the services. So, for example, if a user was to register and then enroll in a service, that should spark off a chain of events that happen to send an email, deal with the billing, deal with the user registration, all of that stuff. If they were to purchase the course, then we need to create a PDF with the invoice, all of that stuff. Now, traditionally, in a monolithic kind of manner, a user would press a button to say start course, and then they would probably wait a long time for all of those processes to work, to go through the motions. But really, if you think about it, users shouldn't have to wait for an email to be sent off in order to then continue their journey. They shouldn't have to wait for a PDF to be generated in order to view the course. They shouldn't even have to wait for the payment to be fully accepted, in my opinion. Especially if it's on a subscription model. So, so you've got all of these little sub-services, all of these sub-functions, routines that happen. And the idea is that you'll be all the services will have tap into a message broker, and a service will be sending a message to another service to say, look, this user's just registered, build the PDF. Traditionally, if you were to do all of this in HTTP requests, so if there was a service that sent an API to a request to another service, which then sent an API request to another service, and so on and so forth, HTTP requests are very fragile in the sense that if they fail, that's it. You lose the connection. If they fail, you lose the payload. With the microservice architecture, you have to plan for failure if one of the services was to drop, and the way you can do that is using messages to be stored and stacked. So when the service does come online, it runs a script, reads the relevant messages that relate to that service, and then proceeds on with the action. Now, I haven't even mentioned the whole event sourcing of message queues. That's a whole different ballgame. So with event sourcing, I guess you can project events, and you can replay events. So, for example, when a user makes a series of transactions against, I don't know, something, then those transactions would be split into events, and then as little messages, and then you would go through each one. You can also see the user journey very, very well through these little messages, because you can see what they've done, how it happened, how the message got into that state. It's very, very useful. Now, I've worked with message queues before, especially with mobile apps. So this is where a mobile app is sending a message to a to something, which then distributes that message to other microservices. So here, the mobile app was just a front end. But if you think of it from a billing perspective, you would have like a user purchases a course, and then that transaction would have to wait for the payment service, whoever is using like Stripe or PayPal or whatever, to then come back with a yes or no, sort of thumbs up, thumbs down type thing, and then you would respond to that. And if you think of it from the best way, the best thing that was ever said to me that really made me click with event sourcing is if you think of it from an accountancy point of view. So if you think of it like a ledger of events, if you think of it like, let's say for example, you paid, you were a freelancer like I am, and you were you decided to, I don't know, invoice a client. Or you moved some money. Let's say you moved some money from one pot to another pot. So you had two accounts, and you moved money from one thing to another thing. That would be a transaction. That would be an event. But then, what happens if you overpay? So do you just take half of that, the overpayment out, or do you return the whole transaction and bring it forward? So with a database, it's very flat. It's a very flat structure. You can't see the history of how the data got into that state. You can only see the data in the static state that it currently is. So with this, I'm able to track a user, essentially, which is very, very handy, because one of the features that I want to do is build an analytics system. And I would like in the future to have teams of people being able to view courses, and I would like team managers to see what's their employees have been viewing, or universities, so what their students have been viewing. Anyway, enough of that. That was a totally unscripted event sourcing, queue management type thing. It probably made absolutely no sense. If I listen back to it, I'm probably gonna just cringe. I haven't been awake for so long. So we have a series of Symfony APIs, and the API that we have is that I have running here is the queue API. There is a queue API, and then there is a queue. We're using Symfony, and we're using the message bus, the message component. So if I go to composer.json here, we have the messenger component. I was using Old Sound, which Old Sound is a library, a bundle for AMQP, but that got a little bit tricky, and this message bundle is just wonderful. Wonderful to use. So the queue API will be used by the front end to send messages to the queue, but then that queue, the messages that are sent on the queue may then create other messages for the communication between the services. So I'm just seeing the queue API as a single entry point to the message queue. It won't be the only message. It won't be the only entrance point, because once the data is on that queue, data can then be more messages can then be sent from that. So you can spark off messages. We have a message and a handler. So at the moment we have two types of messages. One is a course view, one is a tutorial view, and then we have the ways in which we handle those things. Now, if you think of message brokers as a sort of a one service makes the communication, and then or instantiates or makes the conversation, starts the conversation, and then another service will listen to that conversation, so and act upon it. So you have the queue API as the thing that actually makes the message. This is going to go into the controller here. So that will create our course view message, and it will put that onto the dispatch that onto the queue. It's then up to the course service, not the queue API, the course service. So we go to the course service here. It's up to this to then make the relevant actions or act upon that message. So it's listening to the queue, and it's then handling the view. So essentially what this does is it decodes the JSON message, and then it gets the course ID, user ID, and the view count. I've just put a little echo in here, that's whatever. It then loads the user based on the user ID. It finds the relevant course, and then what it does is it increases the view count for that particular user against their course. So this isn't the queue API. This is acting upon the message that was put on the message queue from the API request. The API request is here. So we put in the user API, the user ID and the course ID and the amount it was viewed. We push that up onto the queue. So if I was to hit send again, okay, and then go over to here, we can see that we have now got that message ready. If I go to queues here, we can see that there's two messages ready. If I was to press this again, if I go to where is Postman? Where did you go? If I hit that again, now at this point the course API could be down, but I'm still sending messages 3 here. But I'm still sending messages. Imagine, if you will, these were HTTP requests and the course API was just down for some reason. These views would be lost. And you could think of this as the course could be somewhere else. It might not even be on How to Code Well. It could be somewhere else. But we're retrieving these messages. Okay, so in order to retrieve these, we need to go into the container. Excuse me. Let's come out of that one a minute. Yep, go back into that. That was the right one. We need to do bin console, and it is messenger consume, and so it consumes messages. Oops, bin as in bin. So, I just need to sort that out. Message transport DSN, yeah. So, literally like 5 minutes before the stream, I was just trying to set all this up. So, a lot of this is probably going to be a bit flaky for the first few minutes before I. So the message. Great question there, Turnid. So the message Symfony Messenger is a Symfony component. It's built by Symfony. Here. And it isn't just RabbitMQ that can be used. There's other types of message brokers that you can play with. Also, you can save these messages if you wish to Doctrine. If you want to. I'm just going to play with the message DSN. So I need to go over to. It needs to be the same one as what's on the Q API. Bear with me just a second. So it's that one. And it will be in there, I think. Okay, can you see it? It's now consuming the message. It's now consumed that message and it's come through. It's not, you can't really see it very well on this actually. Sorry, I need to. So what's happened there is because I totally forgot to run the Doctor and Entity migration scripts, I don't have the how to code well user. It doesn't table, which means that this has failed. But it's failed. You can see that it's failed 3 times because what happens is it tries 3 times and fails. So that's a bit silly. I should have ran that. However, let me see a minute if this worked. So you can see that now there's 0 ready because it's failed. So where did my messages go? Let me go back to overview, cures, exchanges. We're missing an exchange. We're missing, why do I not have that exchange? I thought I created a failure exchange. That's annoying. That didn't go as planned. Let me see. Go to the message config, packages, messenger. That should have gone to the failure exchange, and the failure exchange isn't set up. Why not? Have I not committed this code? Bear with me a minute. Oh man, I didn't commit this code. Bear with me a minute. Can't believe that happened. If we go over to the course API, poll, and go have a look into config packages, 9 files, yes, messenger YAML, yeah, we should have a failure exchange. So what I was hoping for was that the messages that fail after 3 times of retrying goes into another queue called failed, which means that you can then retry those failed messages. So if something was to go down, like the database, like we just had an instance of that not being configured correctly, then the message would go into the failure exchange. So you definitely need, yes, Tony, you definitely need to have the messenger package. So you need to have this package installed. It's not a common package, I don't think, yet in Symfony. I had to include it. And then you definitely need to have, obviously, whatever it is that you want to put the message, store the message to. In this case, I'm doing it to RabbitMQ. And what I have here is I've created a new queue, which is just RabbitMQ. And you can open, you set the volumes. So this is the data volumes that all the configuration of RabbitMQ is stored upon. I've then set it to the relevant network, opened up some ports so I can actually have a little nosy into it. And then in the actual course site and also the Q API, you then configure it like so. So you do course, packages, messenger. So you you set this as an environment variable. These are the various transportations. Think of them like the actual, the queues. So failed queue, tutorial view queue, course view queue, and then this is how you route this particular message goes to this particular transport. Oh man, I haven't actually drank any of my drinks yet. So I'm going to just try this again, right? Knowing that this is going to fail. I think what I need to do is restart the queue though, because the configuration's changed. So that was the thing that was tripping me up last night, was not restarting the queue all the time. So this is going to ask me which queue do I want to run now. So the failure queue, the tutorial view queue, or the course view. All right. So I want to run the course view, so I'm going to do 0. So there we go. So it's now running. If you wish, you could also use VV. Rerun the command with VV to see log outputs of the consumed messages. Let's try that. So if you want to skip this, you would just go AMQ course view -VV. That was that's the right thing. So there we go. It's now consuming those messages. So this is constantly looking. So many containers. Yeah. Okay, cool. So I need to put something on the queue, don't I? So we go over to here. We click send. That's going to send that message. So can you see it's now picked that up? And it will fail because the user table doesn't exist here. However, can you see, is it down here somewhere? Somewhere. Yeah, here. Course view will be sent to the failure transport, failed. So this is now saying, well, it's failed those 3 times. Okay, so we're not going to keep messing around with it. What we'll do is we'll put it onto the failed queue. So hopefully now, fingers crossed, if I go into here, you can see now, yeah, it's built the failed queue. So we had one on here, it failed, and then that's now gone down to the failure queue. So this is great when like one of the services drops or something, or if there is a problem, or if for instance, even if things like, one of these services was being deployed, right, and just came offline for just a couple of seconds, or something was happening and an exception was thrown, you can then put it onto a failure queue and then deal with it later. So, okay, that's all happened. That's all good. So what I definitely need to do, one thing I totally forgot to do was, let's close the queue for a moment, is I need to actually run my DB rebuild script. Do I have that? Have I got this in the service? Yes, I have. Cool. So we need to do bin DB update. So that's going to drop the database, create the database, run the migrations, and then deal with the fixtures. There we go. Cool. So that service is now being rebuilt, or the data has now been fixed. The database has been updated. We still have this message on this queue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can retry that. So essentially, what happens? I'm going to just bring up another. Sorry, Tyrannid, this is going to make you crazy now. I'm going to bring up another command, and I'm going to go into another service. We're going to go into the MySQL. So this is only one tab. Usually during the day, I have at least 4 or 5 tabs. It can't go in as. Oh no, I need to actually be in the path, don't I? CD system course API. And it is Docker compose exec mysql bash -u root -p put in my supersonic test password. Oh, why can't it find it? MySQL. Oh, sorry. DB. Is it DB? No, it's course DB. That's what it is. Core. Can't spell course. DB. No. Okay, fine. Let's just cat that out. What is it called? It's called course DB. Of course it is. So why can't I find it? exec course core DB MySQL. Thank you. That's the command I want to run. Wonderful. Yeah, so when I'm working on client machines and stuff like that, my terminal tabs, I'm using iTerm here. There are shortcut commands that I've got on my keyboard that will change the color of the actual prompts. So I know where I am. I also know whether I'm in a production box or not. And when I am playing on production boxes, I do them in a completely separate tab. I do not like, it's so easy to flick from one thing to another thing, right? And if one box is on production and one's on dev or test, you know, it's very easy to make a mistake. So I do it on a completely separate tab, and that tab is glowing like it's a different color. So I know just by looking at it, you know, even if I go to the loo, come back and totally forget what the terminal is, if I see it's red, then I know I'm in production, you know. I recommend anybody who is using terminals like this to set things up where they have something that indicates that they're on a danger zone. We're going to use how to code well. I need to use a database. Use database, sorry. Database. How to code well. What? Use? Oh, it's not that command. What's going on today? What's going on today? So we're going to show the tables. We have the user here. We have the tutorial view, and we should have a course view. I'm going to do a select all from course view. The idea, I mean, that's empty, but the idea is that we want to populate this with a view. Okay, so back in this terminal here, where the queue lives, we're going to bring up we're going to run the queue, but this time we're going to run the failure queue. So I'm going to do message consume, and we're going to do 2. So that's going to rerun the message queue. Has that gone through? Yeah. So that's now done. That's done. I didn't run it with VV, so I didn't get any up, unfortunately. But there you go. See, it's now added the user ID, the course ID, and the counter. Okay, so we're still running the failure queue. So what we could do is consume the course view queue, right? Let's run another request. There we go. We're not running VV, unfortunately. Let's hit another one. And another one. And then just do a select all from here. We should hopefully see, yes, the counter here, number 8. It's not, sorry, it's the way it's all squished because of these IDs. There we go. Number 4, sorry, not number 8. So I'm going to just run this with consume VV, and we're going to do 0. And we'll replay this again, or we'll set this up. So we're going to hit that and that. So there we go. You can actually see it being acknowledged from the transport. And you can see the counter going up. Now what happens, so this is a view count for the particular user and the course. What happens if the user hasn't logged in and they're just viewing a free course, for instance? They won't have an ID, so we will remove that. Let's hit send. Now it's not going to fail. At least it shouldn't. Hang on a minute. Where did that go? So we're not passing in that anymore. Send. So the user ID is blank, and that shouldn't have gone through. Why is that adding to? Unless it's could be some course ID. Let's take that out. Let's put that in. Let's just play and see what I can do to break it. Error, argument 1, course find by ID must be type of string null is given. So that's now gone onto the failure queue. So if we go to consume VV, and let's just check the count on this. That's fine, that's 8. If we go to 2, okay. So this is going to continue to fail because I've removed the course ID, because that's a requirement. Let's come out of this MO. Okay, so now it has totally failed and it's off the queue. That's no problem. Another thing that we can do is I'm just going to force failure again. Is that we can do there's some more commands that we can play with. We can play with the failed commands. So if I did messenger, we can see that we have messenger failed, retry, show. So I'm going to just create this with a failure. So we're not going to include the course ID. We're just going to hit send. So this will fail. So we should have in course view. So because I haven't, sorry, I need to run the command, obviously the queue. So we're going to consume that as 0. So that will fail. Cool. So that's now gone on to the failed queue. Can you see these 3? These are the delayed queues. So when what happens is when there is a failure, there is a time of delay before it tries it again, and then it goes back to where it was. And you can set the delay times up if you wish. Okay, so now that's on the failure queue. What we can do is, instead of using messenger consume, let me just remind myself what the actual commands was. It was show, failed show. So it's messenger failed show. The failed receiver does not support listing of specific messages. Let's do VV. I think that's just because it's so that it shows that there is one message pending. Let's do VV again. Okay, that's fine. So now we can actually see. Oh, sorry. Yeah. So there is one. So this error is coming from the fact that I think we're using RabbitMQ for the failure. Usually, what would happen is, well, you could, if you wanted to, put the failure queue in Doctrine as a database. So you will have a persistent storage of that if you choose to. There is another command, I believe, called retry. Let me just double check that. Yeah, retry. I'm just going to see the help of that. Oh, there isn't any. Let's see if there's any help of show. Oh, sorry, I need to do failed. Failed. Failed show. We'll have a look at that first. So yeah, we can put in the ID. So we're going to do failed show 1. We'll do VV. Nope, doesn't support that. Show 1. I know it's one of these commands. I thought it was... Oh, I thought last night, when I was playing around with it, I thought I was able to actually get into the message. ID of the specific message to show. Okay, that's weird. Let's just try and do a retry. Failed receiver not. The failed receiver does not support retrying messages by ID. Okay, let's not do it by ID then. Ah, there we go. This is the thing. This is what I was playing with last night. So when you do a retry, it gives you the class of the message. It tells you the error that was put through. It gives you the history of the messages. So it was tried on that transport at that time, and then it was put onto the failure transport at that time. It gives you the contents of the message. So here we've got the fact that we can see that the course doesn't have a course ID. Right? We can see the exception that was the stack trace that was given. And then here we have the option: do you want to retry this message? Yes or no. If you hit no, then you will delete the message. If you hit yes, then you will retry the message. Since that message doesn't have a course ID, I cannot retry it because that is required. Yeah, so you can go into specific, you can sort of target your messages, have a look at what was wrong with them. I'm a little bit concerned why not putting the ID on was okay and was going against this ID.
Hello, coders.
So there's something wrong there. Hello, Snork. Hello. Thank you for following. Yeah, let's have a look at that. That's a bit of an issue, isn't it? I thought that the user ID was required. So I've just commented that out. We're running against a counter of 8. If I describe course view, describe table of course view, of course. If I was to spell describe, is it? I don't think it is describe table. There we go. So core user ID is nullable. So is course ID. Well, I'll have to fix that. That shouldn't be nullable. That should be nullable. That shouldn't be nullable. Anyway, my point is that should have actually gone through. And we should have had a row underneath here where we have the ID of the course view, we have null, and we have the course ID, and then we have the updated date, or the creation date, sorry, and then the counter is 1. Okay, so, oh, there we go. So, let's put this back on the queue a minute. So let's go back to Messenger consume. Going as VV. We want 0. Okay. All right, so let's have a fiddle. So we're not supplying the user ID. That's blanked. In fact, I'm going to just delete this. I'll set it as active, but I will delete that. Let's hit send. Right, message has now been sent. So the user ID is empty. Okay. So it has been handled. Why is that going up as 9? That's not right. That certainly isn't right. There's obviously a problem with the code. I'm going to put that back as it was for a minute and have a little look in the code. It's the handler. It's the handler. If we go into the course view here, so what it's doing is it's loading the course view based on the course and the user. The user at this point comes back as null because we don't have the user ID. So if we do load user, this won't find one. Find ID or create if we have a user ID. So only if we have a user ID. If we have a user ID, then it gets found or it gets created, and then it gets returned. So at this point, it's going to return null because we don't have an ID, so that doesn't get executed, which means that doesn't get ran. Hello, Murphy. Okay. So at that point, user is null. We then find the course by the ID. This is where we throw the exception if the ID can't be found. He's all right. Thank you. And then it's at this point here where we load the course based on the course. Load the course view, passing in the user, which would be null, and then the course. So let's open that up. So bearing in mind the user here would be null. Find course and user. Find by course and user. So let's open that up. If user is null here, user data in user that gets added to there, and then find one. Hey, thank you, Tyrannid, for subscribing on Twitch Prime for 4 months. Thank you very much. Do appreciate that immensely. Thank you. That's super. Thank you very much. So, we then return that's find by course and user. Is that so? So if the... I see what's going on here. Thank you very much. I do appreciate that, Tyrannid. I see what's going on here because what happens is this needs to be set to null, man. We're only saying if it is an instance of a user, so it's going to find the course view. But really, what I want to do is I want to run and or is null at this point. Is null. Now, how do I do that in Doctrine? Have I ever done that in Doctrine? Let me have a little think a minute. This should be null. I don't know if that's going to happen. Essentially, what I want the query to do is see that the user is null, and then we'll put in the query itself is null. Let's see if that works. I'm going to just run that again. The queue's still running. That's fine. I don't think I need to restart it because, well, I will just to appease myself. 0. So, send. Oh, I've sent it with the user ID. Silly me. Send it without a user ID. Okay, let's have a little look and see. There we go. There we go. There we go. So we can see that the user ID is null, the course ID is there, but we do have one of a counter. There we go. This check here doesn't really make any sense because null is okay. Let me just have a little test around that. So that counter is 10, that counter is 1. Let's push it up with a with the user ID. So that counter should now be 11. Which it is. Let's take off the user ID. Let's hit send. Let's run that. That counter should be 2. Yeah, we go. There we go. There we go. There we go. So this means that this logic doesn't make any sense. It's doing the same thing. So we'll remove that. And we'll remove that. Actually. Oh, I see. I see why I did that. Because I needed to get the ID of the user. Gotcha. Fair enough. Fair enough. Anyway, so that bug's sorted. We will commit this, allowing user to be null in query. So what I actually want to do now is I want to build the parts of the registration for this. So when a user enrolls, so to do this we need to create a new in the Q API. We're going to create a new API endpoint. So let's just close all those. So in the course controller, this is the view here. We want to create a new API endpoint called this public function. We're going to call this enroll. Is enroll 1L or 2? I think it's 2, enroll. We're going to pass in the request as we've done before, and we're going to return some JSON response. Okay, so this is going to put a message on the queue to enroll the user, which means that there needs to be the course ID and there needs to be the user ID. They're the only two things that we need. So we're going to create a new message on course. We're going to just copy that. We're going to put this in as course enroll. Okay, so we have the user ID. We don't have the view count. We just have these two. This is course enroll. Take that out. Take that out. So this is getting the content from the message. And that's it. That is as simple as the message needs to be at this point in time. So the handler for the API, I'm just using some very unfortunately there needs to be a handler. I need to find a way of turning the handler off from the API's perspective. So we're just going to have course enroll. This course enroll, and it's just going to echo the content. Okay. So what happens is course enroll, or let's just make this clearer. So this is message is equal to new course enroll, passing in the request get user ID, and also the, I think I've put it the wrong way, hasn't I? That needs to be the course ID. There we go. So that creates the message called course enroll, and then we're going to do this message bus, because we've using dependency injection, we put that into the constructor, and we can run dispatch and then pass in the message that we want to dispatch. Okay, then we're just going to do a simple return message sent. Okay, cool. And I'll put in some. Okay, so that's our API endpoint there. We also need to create. I'm going to create a new queue for enrollments. So we'll do that in the where are we? Packages, Messenger. We're going to do course enroll. I mean, it could be on the same queue and just be handled. I mean, you can do that. It's no problem. I'm starting to think that enroll is just one L. I'm not sure. This is where my dyslexia and my confidence drops. Enrollment, enrolled, enrolling. Enroll is one L. Thought so. Officially register as a member of an institution or a student on a course. Enroll as one L. So. Let me tidy all of these things up. There we go. Course enroll handler, course controller. Sweet. Okay. All right. So we need to go back to here, and we need to create a new queue called course enroll. We also need to say that course enroll. We need to say that this message goes to this transport, which is this transport. Sorry, this transport. Just for my organizational sake, I'm going to put the courses together. Like this. Okay, now, so that's the API sorted. All right, that's the API bit done. If we were to spin up a Postman request, so I'm going to just do a duplicate of that, and we're going to change that to be course enroll. So that's course enroll. I think I need to check. Yeah, I need to put in the routing, don't I? Enroll. Yeah, it's a post request. Fine. Okay, so back to here. We're doing course enroll. We need to have a course ID, and we also need to have a user ID. So we may as well just use these for argument's sake. and it's a post request. It is a post request, but these aren't query params. Silly me, these are body params. Sorry. Params. Douche. There we go. Oh, because I duplicated it, didn't I? I don't need that. There we go. Okay. Let's see what happens. Thinking about it, says a message has been sent. Oh yes. So let's have a look. We have a course enroll, so that's automatically created, and we have one ready. Woohoo! Which means that we can go over to the course API and start building out that queue. So over here, what we need to do is in message bus, message and handler, we need to have a course enroll for the handler and the message. And what we're going to do, just to speed up time, is we're going to grab each one from the queue API. So go to course API, paste that in. What's that? What did you miss? What did you miss? So the messenger. Okay, that's a really good question. I have kind of skirted over that. I've skirted over that. Let me just bear with me a second whilst I just marry all this stuff up. Paste. And I also need to deal with the messenger.yaml, but I'll do that in a minute. So Tyrannid's saying, does RabbitMQ send a poke to the API to process the queue? Or does the API need to read RabbitMQ status? Caught off guard. Yeah, no worries. So, okay, so what happens is that RabbitMQ, if you think of it like just a completely separate piece of kit, right, a black box, if you will, and you plug it in through a level of authentication, obviously, and in here you set the AMQ, you set the DSN for it. So this is my username, password, that's the host, that's the port. Obviously this will all be changed. All of this will be changed when it goes to production. I won't just be showing you my environment variables. So that's how you set that up, right? Then in the messenger, in packages, in here, you deal with the transportations and the routing for each of the messages. They go to these various queues. When you run a command through, let's say I ran the API request, what it does, because it knows that it's going through the message bus, which is here. So if I go back to the queue API, it knows that it's dispatching a message, and what happens is it first of all, it sees if the queue is there, and if the queue isn't there, it creates a queue on RabbitMQ through that connection. So here, so it will go, oh, there wasn't a queue called course enroll, so I'll create one, and then after I've created one, I'll put the message on that queue. There's a lot of other things that this is a massive piece of kit, RabbitMQ. So we've got queues, we've got exchanges, we've got channels, and there is so much more in terms of configuration that you could do. There's different ways in which the queue can actually handle the message. It could be, it could be distributed to multiple queues if you want to. You don't have to put it onto a single queue. So you could have multiple things listening to it. And the exchanges as well, so you can have different types of, so you've got topic here, you've got headers, fan out, direct. I think I'm only using, so the failure is fan out, because what's happening here is that, you can fan it out to multiple queues. These are the exchanges. So you have a queue and you have an exchange. So the course enrollment and the delays, so the delays itself is direct, loads of stuff. And I'm using Symfony as a way of configuring it all. But you could go, you could actually get onto this box and start configuring it, manually if you want. Better people than me do that. So what happens is the message just lands on RabbitMQ, right? It just sits there. And then you have to have another service, or it could be a console script that runs a loop against a particular queue, and it discovers messages on that queue, and then it acts upon them, and it sends a message back to the queue saying that it's been handled. If it hasn't been handled, if it's failed, then it's up to the queue to decide what to do with it. In this case, the queue will retry it for 3 times. After the 3rd time, once it's failed, it will go onto the failure queue. And then it's up to you to then fix that failure. And that it might mean that it means that it goes back to another queue, Think of this as like, if you think of it like an old switchboard operator. So it's, you're plugging in communication from one service to another service, and the RabbitMQ is the switchboard. Okay, so that's gone through. That we're now on the enrollment here. So that's happened. We need to go into the Q API, the course API here, and we need to handle it. So we're just going to copy that and put that into here. Course enroll handler. Okay, so we're going to use the user manager and we're going to use the course manager. We're not going to use the course view manager. These are all injected. There we go. So that's fine. We're then going to do a JSON decode of the JSON, and we're going to pull out the course ID and we're going to pull out the user ID. So we can just grab that. I'm only putting that in for some debug purposes. Okay, so then we load the user. Now the load user here, that's fine. That'll get the user. Then here we find the course. If their course can't be found, then we throw the exception. Now remember, this isn't the authentication. This is just associating a user ID to a course. Yes, essentially yes. Yes, you basically need a cron to check yes. However, if you were to use the Symfony, then a Symfony console script, then that's already done for you. It's just listening. You just have it running. There are options that you can supply to allow it to delay, so it's not constantly like sniffing out for new messages. If, say, for example, you're running on a small resourced system. Okay, so we don't need to load the view. That's no problem. We don't need to do that. Course view manager. Well, no, we're going to do course manager, and we're going to do enroll. We're going to create a method in there which will enroll the user to the course. In fact, do we need to go through the course? No, I think we need to do it through the user manager, isn't it? User manager enroll Let me think. Hang on. Does that come back with a user? So let me... What methods I've already created? I must have created something. Add course registration. There we go. Okay, so I need to create a course registration. Gotcha. Yes, I did this the other day, the other evening. So the way I've set this up, if I go to the entities, so we have course here, and we also have the user. The user has course registration. So you register an entity called course registration, and that course registration is so that would be, sorry, going backwards and forwards. So that's a one-to-many. So one user has many course registrations. A course registration has many users and many courses. I think that's right. Many course registrations to a course. I think that's correct. I haven't played with this yet. I've just set this up. So in fact, I'm quite... Yeah, this might not work. I haven't actually done anything with this yet. Okay, so what I need to do, it looks like, is I need to do course, and we'll refactor all of this, registration. Bear with me a second. Where did that... Sorry. There we go. Odd. Okay, so new course registration, sorry. Course registration here, we're going to do set course. That is the course that we have. We also have a set user, I think. Set user, which is the user here. And then we have set... Why is that not coming back as set user? Do I not have that as a set active is true? Anything else? Not yet. No. Okay. Cool. Okay, so course registration is sorted, and then what we do is, I guess what we need to do is, instead of user manager, that would be course registration manager, but so that would be in manager, course manager, oops, registration. So we have the entity there. That would be course registration. Course registration. Change that as well. Okay. What's wrong with this? Unnecessary local variable. Yeah, of course. Oh, no, I do need that. Sorry. That needs to be entity because I need to adjust the... Okay. And then down here, that's course registration repository. Course registration. Okay, course registration. There's still an issue here. What's going on with that? Return value is expected to be course registration null, but an object is returned. Oh, silly. This needs to be entity. There we go. Entity equals. Tidy that up. Okay, good. Good. So we're going to have another class in here. Not a class, sorry. Public function. We're going to call this function. Enroll. So we'll have a user, which is the user entity, and we'll have the course. Which essentially is going to do exactly what this stuff is doing. The handler, this here. Course registration manager. What we do is we say this create. Then we set the course, get the user, set the course, set the user, set that, and then we need to save it. So do we have a save routine up here? No, we don't. So let's see if we can grab a save routine from here. We've got an update routine and a save routine. So course registration. Okay. Again, like I said, we'll refactor all of this later. There's no biggie. Okay, so that persists that. So when we go and enroll, we can then do this. Save, passing in the course registration. That returns self, which means that we will return self too. Okay, which means that the handler can just do, we need to have this as a manager. Course registration. Oh, sorry. There we go. Course registration manager. Grab you. Okay, and then obviously this course registration manager is equal to course registration manager. Scroll down here. It's then this course registration manager enroll. And we pass in the user and we pass in the course. There we go. So do we need load user? Yes. Do we need load course view? No. Now, one thing we do need to do is check that the user hasn't already enrolled, because if that is the case, so I guess what we could do down here is we do low check enrollment. Check enroll. Passing in the course, passing in the user, and that's going to be either the enrolled course registration. Check registration. Check reg. Which is course registration manager find. We got find by ID. We're going to do find by course and user. Course. Registration. Interesting music choice. Let's go back to the start, shall we? Okay, so this is course registration manager. We're not going to create one. We're just going to say, have I got one? If I do, then we'll return it. In fact, there's no point in even putting this in a method, but whatever. So that goes into here. Scroll. No. It goes into there, doesn't it? This is the manager. We want to do public function. Find by course and user. So this is course. And this is the user. Very similar to this. However, this becomes the user and the course. So good. Okay. Now course and role handler. Okay, let's have a look. So we have this pointless method. We essentially want to wrap this around. We want to go, okay, course registration, or if we do known registration. Known registration is that, and then we do if known registration. If known registration is an instance of course. In fact, I tell you what would be good. Public function has registered, passing in the course just as a wrapper. User. This is going to be returning a Boolean because I can see myself needing this method in other places. So we would do this, find by course and user, passing in the course, passing in the user, and we would do if. I mean, we could even do this as a ternary. So if that is an instance of course registration. That's what I need. There we go. Right, so that's going to return true or false if that is an instance of course registration. So a nice little wrapper for that. Whereas this will return the actual entity. Or null. Excellent, which means that now in the enrollment I can get rid of all this. That's not required. And in here we can do if, well, has registered. I'm not going to wrap that in an if. So this is known. If known. So if false, 1, 2, 3, boom, then we will register. If not, don't worry about it. They've already registered. It's all good. So why did I do that? Why did I do a check? The thing is, when you're dealing with messages can get out of sync, So you want to make sure that you're checking for cases where a message has already been processed, and the record has already been added by some other thing. So in my experience with message queues, you can trip yourself up badly by assuming that you're just working in a linear process. It's not that simple, unfortunately. You're not working in a linear process at all when you're dealing with message queues, because a queue could be processing a message that relies on a piece of data that hasn't actually happened yet. And if you think of it from the accountancy transactional point of view, as I mentioned earlier, what would happen in that case if it's relying on data that hasn't happened yet? What you would do is you would then add another message on the queue to then rectify that instance if that hasn't happened yet. So, I'm relying on this data. This data isn't in there yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a message on the queue to amend the data once that data that I originally needed has been processed. That kind of thing. Otherwise, you can get yourself into some really deep water. Do not make assumptions when it comes to message queues. It does get a little bit tedious. Not tedious. It gets a little bit sort of like interesting. So, okay. So what have we not done here? We've done. This is why here with the user, I've got find by ID or create, because it could be a case where the user hasn't been created yet on the system when they viewed a course, because the course registration message hasn't been processed yet. Because this isn't the authentication layer, it's all the ID for the user ID is just a reference point. That's all it is. Okay, so that's running, or that's done. Let's see if we can get this to actually work. That'd be a good finish. So I need to go up to the messages YAML, and I need to put in the details for this particular queue that I'm listening to. So that's in the data for that is in here. So I'm going to grab that, because both services need to have the same need to listen to the same queue, or need to the queue API needs to put messages on the queue that the course API is listening to, if that makes sense. So there we go, we put that in there, and we're going to route that as well. So the routing here is this one. Course. Okay, which means now that the course API, this thing here, let's close this down. We should be able to do a consume VV, and we should get the option, hopefully, to consume. Come on. Oh, did I just press enter? I did. I was getting impatient. There we are, number 1. So that was consuming the view, which was this one. Okay, so let's see. We have the failure. We should have the failure. Let me just double check. I'm getting nervous now. We should have the failure queue set. Failure transport. Yeah. Okay. So if anything does go bang, we should have the queue in the. We should have the message on the failure queue. So we're going to go for number 1, course enroll. Okay. Error thrown whilst handling the course enroll. Trying to dispatch no handler for message course enroll. Okay. I'm going to put that in brackets. That should have gone off to the failure queue. Cool. All right. So we can debug this by going to Messenger. Debug Messenger. We should see, hopefully. Come on. Come on. Here we go. So the course view, message view. Yeah, what I need is another message bus. Yeah, so somehow that's caught with the course view. That's not what I need. Course enroll. Okay, so if we go to the course enroll here, that's course, message course. And then in the course handler, this would be, it's waiting on the course view, passing in the course view rather than the course enroll. That's why, I hope. Now I haven't configured it yet to keep the message on the failure queue. If it fails after I've tried to retry it, I think it just comes straight off. So we may have to try this a couple of times. I'm just going to debug that again, just to make sure that things are wired up correctly. Yeah, so we now have course enroll is handled by course enroll handler. Yeah. So Symfony does a little bit of magic there to work out which handler deals with which message, which is pretty nifty. Okay, so I need to run the failure queue. So we're going to do course consume VV. Actually, no, we don't. We do course failed. Show VV. Okay, that should show that we have one message on the queue, and we're going to do retry VV. So this is the message. So we can see the message, so we can see that we have the IDs for the course ID and the user ID. Fine. We can see the attempts it made when it went onto the failure queue. We can see the error here. So no handler for message. Well, now we've adjusted the handler. So let's see if we can run it. So I'm going to type yes. And it appears to have worked. So I'm going to do show tables again, because I can't remember what I've called the table. I think I've called it just course registration. So if we do select all from registration, there we go. We have the registrated the registration that has been added. Marvelous. That's great. Okay, so I just want to see what happens if we were to run the course. If we were to consume if we were to consume the messages from the enrollment, so number 1, I want to see what happens when we try and enroll this user again to this particular course. Send. What happens? So that's gone and grabbed it. It should have just silently dropped it because of this check down in here, course enroll handler. It should have just gone, it's already known, so we won't bother. So that we shouldn't have any change, which we don't, which is great. Yeah. Cool. Excellent. So we're building a little bit of intelligence into the back end of this. course management. And I think this is where a lot of the work will be, especially on the back end, is to get these queues lined up and communicating with one another. This probably won't come out on the MVP, on the first ever release version of this. I'm playing at the moment. I'm in a period of just playing with tech, and seeing if I can get things to line up with what I want this system to achieve. But yeah, I'm happy with that at the moment. So after the course registration, we need to... Well, there's lots of stuff I need to do with the MVP that because I've been playing around with this stuff, I haven't looked at yet. So I need to do a lot of the content for the courses. I need to actually adjust the actual copy. There's a couple of styling issues that I need to deal with, and I need to sort out, I think it's the forgotten password that needs to happen. I definitely need to set up an email system for these things to happen, and we might be using that. It makes sense to use that as a queue. Perhaps use something like Mailgun or something to handle the actual emails, the distribution of the emails, but maybe have a queue that has... So once the user has enrolled, what I would like is perhaps this to fire off another message to the queue to say, look, send this person an email. But the beauty with all of this stuff, of course, is that this is happening in the background. The user is completely unaware of this. They can just get on and watch the course. They could get an email in 5 seconds. They could get an email in 5 minutes. It really depends on what's happening on the back end. And if one of these services was to drop, then the message would go in the failure queue, which means that when I bring up the service again and fix whatever bug was in there, it would just continue on as normal. That's the thing. When you're moving away from a monolith into a set of microservices, you need to think about how each of these services communicate. And queuing is a great way of doing that, because you can send a message. Even if the service doesn't exist, you can send a message. Like what I did earlier, I didn't even have the handler working, but I sent a message. And then I built the handler, and then I retrieved that message. It failed because the handler wasn't working. I fixed the handler, and then I retried the failed message, and it went through. That is a real-world situation. Let's say, for example, these services were out in production, and I foolishly committed some code and pushed some code up which didn't work, which meant that none of the messages were actually being received because I decided to call the handler a different name or something daft. But the messages would still be there in the failed queue, waiting to be processed again. And you could also do some really interesting things as well. So, for example, one thing that I'm thinking of doing is having a way of saving the messages on a daily basis, which means that when this does go into production, I can then pull down the messages and then run them, sort of anonymize them first, and then run them all. So a whole 24 hours of messages, and just test and use that as a sort of a test bench. So, like, I would take a snapshot, maybe like a day's worth of messages, a week's worth of messages, anonymize all the data, so none of the users would actually be the users in production world, and then just throw that like as a regression test to sort of pressure wash, I suppose, all of the services. Interesting. Anyway, I need to crack on with my day. I'm dealing with some really tricky API stuff today. None of this. This is stuff that this is refreshing stuff to me. The stuff I'm dealing with on a freelance basis is at the moment is very tricky. Tricky APIs and tricky front ends. So anyway, I will be back on Thursday. I'll be back on Thursday, 7 a.m. GMT. Thank you ever so much, everybody, for watching. And also, thank you very much, Tyranid, for the 4-month subscription, and follow, and Snork for following. I do appreciate it. Thank you ever so much, everybody. Happy coding, everyone. Have a good day. Cheers. Bye-bye.